Hello and good morning. I am Gursheen Garland and you're watching Firstpost Live at 10, your straightforward look at the day's top global stories with no clutter and no spin. But before we begin, the headlines first. Tehran hits back at Kuwait, calling its allegation of an Iranian incursion onto Babiyan Island absolutely baseless. Israel pounds South Lebanon with new strikes, killing 13 people. Beirut claims 380 people have been killed in attacks since an April 17 ceasefire took effect. India's finance ministry launches a $1.5 billion guarantee for a maritime insurance pool. This will shield the shipping sector from disruptions linked to the West Asia war. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva unveils a crime crackdown plan as security fears surge nationwide. The high-stakes move comes 5 months before Brazil's elections. And Sam Altman says Elon Musk was obsessed with controlling OpenAI in a blockbuster trial. The tech titans clash as Musk accuses the company of abandoning its original mission. We begin with the latest from West Asia. For years, Saudi Arabia and Iran, the region's biggest powers, have fought each other through proxies, militias, cyber attacks and covert operations. But now, for the first time, reports suggest Saudi Arabia may have directly struck Iranian territory. Reports say the Saudi airstrikes on Iran was a tit-for-tat response, following Iranian strikes on the kingdom, first from within Iran and then through proxy groups in Iraq. The strikes were never publicly announced. Saudi officials have not directly confirmed them. Iran has also stayed silent. But reports citing multiple Western and Iranian officials say that these attacks did take place. And at the time, Saudi had said that it reserves the right to respond to Iranian strikes.
I've not had a long enough diplomatic career to have experienced such a blatant attempt at blackmail as firing missiles while a diplomatic gathering is taking place. On the contrary, this pressure will backfire. Will backfire politically, will backfire, I believe, morally, and certainly, as we have stated quite clearly, we have reserved the right to take military actions if deemed necessary. And if the time comes, the leadership of the kingdom will take the necessary decision.
If the Saudi strikes are officially confirmed, it would mark the first known direct Saudi military attack on Iran in modern history. And that matters because Saudi Arabia has spent years trying to avoid exactly this kind of direct confrontation. Even during the most tense periods of the Iran-Saudi rivalry, the two sides mostly operated through proxies in Yemen, Iraq, Syria and Lebanon. But the current war appears to have pushed Riyadh to a different conclusion. That deterrence now requires direct action. But here's what makes this moment even more important. This does not appear to be a full-scale escalation. It appears to have been a calculated message. According to reports, Saudi Arabia confirmed its military action to Iran through diplomatic channels. And it warned that further attacks would bring further retaliation. And then something changed. The number of Iran-linked attacks on Saudi Arabia fell dramatically. In the week after the reported Saudi strikes on Iran, reports citing Western officials say Iran scaled back direct attacks on Saudi Arabia, although its allied groups in Iraq continued operating. It's also important to note that this is not just about Saudi Arabia firing at Iran. It is about the collapse of an old regional red line. For decades, the Gulf monarchies preferred to let the United States handle direct confrontation with Iran. They funded alliances, they hosted American bases, but they avoided open war themselves. Now that calculation appears to be changing. The UAE has already been accused of carrying out covert strikes inside Iran in April. Now Saudi Arabia is reportedly doing the same. That means two of the most powerful Gulf states may now be willing to use direct military force against Tehran. And that creates a completely different security landscape in West Asia.
Let us be clear. Targeting civilians and civilian infrastructure is not only unacceptable, it's unlawful. And this was not an isolated incident. Since 28 February, the UAE has intercepted over 500 ballistic missiles nearly 30 cruise missiles, and more than 2,000 UAVs launched from Iran. Commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz continue to be struck. Deliberate attacks on international shipping in one of the world's most vital waterways. And what happens in the Strait of Hormuz does not stay in the Strait of Hormuz.
It also shows what all Riyadh and Abu Dhabi are willing to do to protect the new age economic foundations of the region. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are not just oil states anymore. They are trying to rebrand themselves as global business hubs, tourism centers, and even investment destinations. But missiles flying across the Gulf, threats to shipping lanes, and attacks on energy infrastructure put that entire economic model at risk. For Riyadh and Abu Dhabi, this is not about national security and economic survival. And there is another critical layer to this story. The United States, Washington, has long been the security guarantor for the Gulf. But recent years have created doubts across the region about how far America is willing to go in defending its allies. That uncertainty has pushed countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE to build more aggressive and independent military postures. In other words, the Gulf states are no longer waiting passively for Washington to solve their problems. And that is why these reported Saudi strikes matter far beyond just one military operation. Because they may signal that West Asia's old shadow war is becoming a much more open conflict. A conflict where Gulf powers are no longer hiding behind proxies, but are increasingly willing to strike each other directly. Moving on to our next story. Striking a confident tone before leaving for Beijing, President Donald Trump said he does not need China's help on Iran. Trump is heading to China for his first visit to Beijing since 2017. The high-stakes visit comes amid tensions over trade, Taiwan, rare earth exports, and the ongoing Iran war. Before departing the White House, Trump said he expected extensive talks with Xi on Iran.
Well, I think, number one, we're going to have a long talk about it. I think he's been relatively good, to be honest with you. You look at the blockade, no problems. They get a lot of their oil from that area. We've had no problem, and he's been a friend of mine.
The president also made it clear that Washington does not believe it needs China's assistance in Iran war.
Do you think he needs to intervene at all with the Iranians?
I don't
Do you think he can help in any way?
No, I don't think we need any help with Iran. We'll win it one way or the other. We'll win it peacefully or otherwise. Their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone, every single element of their war machine is gone.
Even as Trump played down differences with Beijing, he described Xi Jinping as relatively good on the Iran issue. The remarks come as China remains one of Iran's biggest oil customers. Despite US sanctions targeting Tehran's energy exports, it is a sign of Beijing's growing concern over the war. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi held talks with Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, urging Islamabad to help push mediation efforts between Iran and the United States. Beijing also called for steps to ensure stability around the Strait of Hormuz, a key global oil shipping route.
China is deeply concerned that the ongoing conflict has affected a large number of vessels and seafarers and left them stranded in the strait, stressing that restoring unimpeded passage as soon as possible and ensuring the safety of civilian ships and crew are in the common interests of regional countries and the wider international community.
Alongside Iran, trade and Taiwan are expected to dominate the talks between the two leaders. Trump has said he will discuss US arms sales to Taiwan with Xi, a sensitive issue for Beijing, which claims the self-governing island as its territory, a claim that Taiwan has repeatedly denied.
Do you think we should still be selling them weapons? The United States.
Well, I'm going to have that discussion with President Xi. President Xi would like us not to, and I'll have that discussion. That's one of the many things I'll be talking about. He loves his country, I can tell you that, President Xi. I look forward to being there.
Meanwhile, Beijing also responded after Trump said he planned to discuss US arms sales to Taiwan with Xi Jinping. China reiterated its opposition to American military support for the self-governing island.
During President Trump's visit to China, the two heads of state will exchange in-depth views on major issues on China-US relations and on world peace and development. China's position against U.S. arms sales to Taiwan is consistent and clear. Regarding the Jimmy Lai case, China has repeatedly stated its position previously.
Trump has also said his personal relationship with Xi Jinping could help prevent a conflict over Taiwan. The US president said he believes his ties with the Chinese leader would help maintain stability in the region. Other key issues expected to feature in the talks include China's restrictions on rare earth exports, as well as long-standing trade disputes between the world's two largest economies. The visit comes at a delicate time for both countries. Washington and Beijing are currently maintaining a temporary truce in their tariff dispute after years of trade tensions that began during Trump's first term. The summit will also include a state banquet and several official events in Beijing over Thursday and Friday. Beijing has already tightened security ahead of Trump's arrival. Heavy police deployment has been seen across major intersections in the Chinese capital, with officers carrying out identity checks at metro stations. Trump's China visit now puts the spotlight on a complex US-China relationship, from Iran to Taiwan and trade. All eyes are now on Beijing for breakthroughs or new fault lines. Donald Trump was up late again, but this time it was not a policy speech, a campaign rally, or a diplomatic announcement. It was once again a full-blown social media posting spree. In just over 3 hours, the US president flooded his Truth Social account with more than 50 posts. Most were not new statements. They were reposts, videos, memes, screenshots, and supporter messages. But together, they painted a very clear picture. He was targeting his enemies, reviving old conspiracies, and turning his feed into a political war room. Let's break down what happened. Several of Trump's posts were focused on the Iran war. In one AI-generated image, a US drone was shown destroying Iranian fast-attack boats. Another post depicted a US warship shooting down Iranian drones. It was captioned, "Bing, bing, gone." Trump also shared a graphic titled, "Length of Wars." It compared major US military conflicts by duration. Afghanistan was listed at the longest at 543 weeks, followed by Iraq, Vietnam, and World War II. At the very bottom was a bright red box marked Iran excursion. It claimed the Iran conflict lasted just 6 weeks. Another post, titled 159 Iranian ships, drew a direct contrast between Trump and his predecessors. The site, labeled Obama-Biden, showed Iranian naval vessels operating freely. The site, labeled Trump, showed those same ships destroyed and sunk. And the biggest target of the night? Former President Barack Obama. Trump shared at least 17 posts aimed at Obama. Several of them old, debunked claims, including the allegation that Obama ordered Trump Tower to be wiretapped during the 2016 election. But Trump went further, calling Obama a traitor. Other posts of his accused Obama of plotting a coup against Trump. One post even described him as the most demonic force in American politics. Trump also shared an altered image showing Obama, Joe Biden, and Nancy Pelosi inside the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. The pool appeared filled with sewage, and Obama was not the only one in crosshairs. Hillary Clinton was targeted 7 times. Trump also reposted multiple claims about the 2020 presidential election. He shared posts claiming the election was stolen. He amplified false accusations against voting technology companies, and he boosted all conspiracy claims from allies like Michael Flynn and Sidney Powell. In total, at least 11 posts were directly about election fraud. He also turned his fire towards members of his own conservative camp. Trump criticized Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, both of whom he appointed. He said they had hurt our country after recent legal discussions went against his policy agenda. Then there were the memes. Trump shared AI-generated images of himself. One showed his face on the $100 bill. Others mocked his rivals. All of this has raised questions related to Trump's fitness for office.
He doesn't seem okay to me, and I know that sounds like a political shot. It seems like there's something wrong with the man. The middle-of-the-night obsessive posts seemed crazy.
At recent events, the president appeared tired or closed his eyes during public events. And this, the late-night posting pattern, is adding to a broader debate about presidential fitness. Trump's own supporters in the past have questioned his fitness.
I think we have to truly question the mental stability of any president that threatens to wipe out an entire civilization.
Now, in his defense on Monday, Trump said that he felt the same as he did 50 years ago. Trump, now the oldest person ever elected president, continues to insist he's in excellent shape. The White House has now announced that he will undergo a medical and dental exam later this month at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. It will be his third such visit since returning to office. And as Donald Trump's late-night posts continue to dominate headlines, the questions are no longer just about what he is saying, but what his behavior may be saying about him. And the latest midnight posting spree has once again put his presidential fitness under the spotlight. If you've been trying to book an international Air India flight lately, you may have noticed something strange. Fewer flights, higher prices, longer journeys, and in some cases, complete cancellations. That is because Air India is now quietly pulling back a large part of its international network. This comes as the fuel supply disruption caused by US-Iran war continues to hit India's aviation sector hard. The Tata-owned airline has started scaling down major long overhaul routes, including flights from Delhi to Chicago, Newark, and Shanghai. Services to Singapore have also been reduced. Flights to Paris, San Francisco, Toronto, and Vancouver are being cut as well. Overall, Air India is reducing around 100 daily flights across its network. And the reason is simple. Flying planes on these long-haul routes have become too expensive. And its biggest expense is fuel. When crude oil prices shoot up, jet fuel becomes far more expensive. And right now, that is exactly what has happened after the war with Iran shook global energy markets. Jet fuel prices have significantly increased this month. For airlines, this is like running a taxi service where petrol prices suddenly go through the roof. And when that happens, airlines tend to take three survival steps. First, raise ticket prices. Second, cut operation costs. And third, reduce flights. And right now, Air India appears to be doing all three things to keep itself flying. Air India is also carrying the weight of a massive financial turnaround. The airline has already accumulated losses of more than 20,000 crore rupees. And ever since the Tata Group took over, it has been trying to rebuild the airline, modernize the fleet, and expand its global network. But this war-driven oil shock has arrived at exactly the wrong time. In fact, industry bodies representing Air India, Indigo, and SpiceJet have already warned the government that more cuts may follow if fuel prices continue to stay this high. And that is why this story matters, even if you never fly abroad. Because air travel is often one of the first sectors to show the impact of a global economic crisis. When fuel becomes expensive, airlines feel it immediately. Then passengers feel it. And eventually, the entire economy starts feeling it through higher prices. That's all for now. Thank you for joining us. I am Gursheen Gala and we'll see you right back here with more updates. Until then, stay informed and stay tuned to Firstpost.
The countdown begins to the Trump-Xi summit. Amid the war in West Asia, the world's two largest economies, at odds for years, trillions in trade, tangled in tariffs. A global power contest over technology and Taiwan. The agenda is long, the trust is thin. The world will be watching. And what's at stake for India? The news, the nuance, the analysis, all on Firstpost.